Hi, I'm Larry Karaszewski, and this is Trailers from Hell. Right now we're going to look at a neglected Western from 1972, Skin Game with James Garner and Louis Gossett. It's a slave comedy, which probably explains why it doesn't show up much on television, but that doesn't mean we can't take a look at it. I saw this film quite a bit as a kid. It's a con man movie, and I've always had a weakness for that genre. It has a very sharp plot. Pauline Kael was a big fan of Skin Game. James Garner and Louis Gossett are a couple of pre-Civil War era grifters. They ride into a southern town, Garner sells his favorite slave, Gossett, and then that night Garner helps Gossett escape. They ride to the next town and do it all over again. If that sounds vaguely familiar, it's really just a variation on the con Clint Eastwood and Eli Wallach play in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where Eastwood turns outlaw Wallach in for reward money and then helps him escape right before hanging. What makes Skin Game memorable is that it has the race card to play, and it does it over and over again. This was released by Warner Brothers, and I think it taught the executives there that the N-word could be used for laughs, and gave them the courage to release Blazing Saddles a few years later. The two leads here are terrific, Garner playing a variation on his Brett Maverick character, probably the closest he came on film to recreating that TV icon. Garner has an easygoing charm that was probably better suited to television, but I always enjoy seeing him on film. He made several Western comedies around this time period, Support Your Local Sheriff, Support Your Local Gunfighter, and this is probably my favorite Louis Gossett performance.
Told these bitters all the way down here.
Daisy, you can forget it, she knows.
What, Ma Quincy?
Who we are.
Wonderful.
He has a lightness here. Of course, a few years later, he goes on to win an Emmy for playing a non-funny slave in Roots, and then on to win the Oscar for An Officer and a Gentleman. The screenplay for Skin Game is credited to Pierre Martin, and that's a pseudonym for one of my favorite writers, the great Peter Stone. He wrote some clever films, Charade, Mirage, Arabesque, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and the underrated Revolutionary War musical 1776. Revolutionary War musical, Civil War slave comedy, this guy did some risky stuff and he pulled it off. If there's a weak link here, it's the director, Paul Bogart. He's a bit of a legend in television. He won the Emmy for All in the Family, but his movie work always felt a little cheap. Stuff like Cancel My Reservation with Bob Hope or the third Oh God film. His two best pictures are both with James Garner, Skin Game and another movie I love, Marlowe, a terrific adaptation of Raymond Chandler's detective story, The Little Sister. That film is probably best remembered for an amazing sequence that introduced Bruce Lee to American movies. Bruce kung fu's Philip Marlowe's office, breaking everything in sight, the desk, the chandelier. Skin Game was actually turned into a TV pilot, although not directed by Bogart. Burt Kennedy came in. Gossett returned, but Garner was replaced by Larry Hagman. It was retitled Sidekicks and wasn't bad, but it never made it to series.